So we've looked at surface area and volume of prisms, cylinders, pyramids, and cones. We're going to finish out surface area and volume today with a sphere. And we combine these because when we look at surface area, we typically use the idea of nets. But it's a little bit more difficult with a sphere because it's hard to flatten out a sphere completely. Now, a sphere is a set of all points in the space equidistant from a given point called the center. You know, basketball with the center. The radius is a segment that has an endpoint at the center and the other on the sphere, just like in a circle. The diameter is the segment that passes through the center and has endpoints on the sphere, just like in a circle. Now, some other vocabulary to keep in mind: when a plane and a sphere intersect in more than one point, the intersection is a circle. And if the center is also the center of the sphere, that's called the great circle. In other words, it's the largest circle within that sphere. The circumference of the great circle is the circumference of the sphere. And that great circle also divides the sphere into two hemispheres. So if you think of that as being like the equator of the Earth, you have the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere. It's that same idea. Now, in terms of surface area, the formula that we use is 4 times the product of pi and the square of the radius, so 4 pi r squared. And again, although it's hard to flatten it out into a net, if you think about it from a baseball standpoint, you basically have 4 circles that we're adding together to find the surface area, and that's where that formula comes from. So let's look at a couple of examples. Here we want to know the surface area of the sphere in terms of pi. It has a diameter of 10 meters. So the surface area is 4 pi r squared. So we have 4 times pi times the radius, which is going to be half of this, squared. Okay. So 5 squared is 25 times 4 is 100. So we have 100 pi. Our unit was meters. So our answer is square meters, not cubic, square meters. Okay. In our next example, now we have a sphere with a diameter of 14 inches. So surface area is 4 pi r squared. So we have 4 times pi. Now the diameter is 14 inches, so the radius is 7. So 7 times 7 is 49 times 4. We get 196 pi. Our unit was inches, so our answer is going to be square inches. Whoops. Now for this one, the Earth's equator is about 24,902 miles long. What is the approximate surface area of the Earth? Okay, so surface area is 4 times pi times the radius squared. So we have 4 times pi, and we need to find out the radius. Well, we know that the equator is this length. Now the equator is the circumference of that great circle. Alright, so 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, so 24,902 is 2 times pi times the radius. Okay. Well, first I divide both sides by 2 just to keep it simple. So we have pi times r equals 12,451. Can't talk today. And then if I divide both sides by pi, and we can estimate that using 3.14, we get 3,963.22, and it keeps on going on. This again is just an estimate. Alright, so we're going to use this as our answer over here. So 3,963.22. Now here's a little trick as you're using the calculator to help make sure that we get as accurate an answer as possible. Is when you do this step to get this, save that answer. Don't clear your calculator. Then when we come over here, rather than punching in this number, which is an approximation, we have the whole long decimal. We can go ahead and square it and then multiply that times 4 times pi, and we get this really long number. Alright, and I'll carry it out a couple of places. Now we just want the approximate, so let's round it to the nearest whole number. So we get 197,387,017. All right, our answer is in miles, so we have square miles. So 197,387,717 square miles is the approximate surface area of the Earth. Now here's another example just like that. We want the surface area of a sphere with a circumference of 18 inches. Alright, surface area is 4 pi r squared. Circumference is 2 pi r. Right? We know we're going to have 4 times pi, and we just need to find the radius. So we have 18 equals 2 times pi times the radius. Again, go ahead and divide both sides by 2, so we get 9 equals pi times the radius. Divide both sides by pi, so the radius is approximately, again this is not exact, but it's approximately 2.864. Alright, I'm going to put this over here, but I'm not going to clear my calculator. Instead, I'm going to take the really long decimal answer that I got for this, and I'm going to go ahead and square it, and then multiply that times 4 times pi, and I get an answer. If I round it, I get 103.132. Right? I'm going to round that to the nearest whole number, so we'll just say 103. Our unit was inches, so our answer is square inches. So about 103 square inches. Now when we look at the volume of a sphere, the volume is going to be 4/3 pi r cubed. And that's our formula. So if we look at putting that into an example, the volume of a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. In this example, and we're going to leave it in terms of pi, we have a radius of 6. So we have 4/3 times pi times 6 cubed. And here's how we're going to do this on our calculator, and I'll write this out for this step. So we're going to do 6 times 6 times 6, that gets the 6 cubed, times 4. We're going to find out what that answer is, and then we're going to divide that by 3. Okay? And that answer we're going to leave times pi. So when I do all of this, I get 288 pi. My unit was meters, so my answer is cubic meters because we're back to volume. So that's cubic units. Okay. Now for this example, a sphere has a diameter of 60 inches. What is its volume in terms of pi? Remember, volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So we have 4/3 times pi. Now if the diameter is 60 inches, the radius is half of that, or 30 inches. Okay, so again, we're going to do the 30 cubed, 30 times 30 times 30, times 4, divided by 3. We get 36,000. Answer is in terms of pi, so pi, our unit is inches, so our answer is cubic inches. Okay. Now sometimes we can use volume to help us find surface area, or vice versa. In this example, the volume of a sphere is 5,000 cubic meters. What is its surface area to the nearest square meter? So volume, again, is 4/3 pi r cubed. Well, we know that 5,000 is our volume of 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, since this has 4/3, and what I really need is the value of r, because again, surface area, remember, is 4 times pi r squared. Okay? So I need to isolate r, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/4. And I do that because it will cancel my 4/3. So I have pi r cubed equals, and then 5,000 times 3/4, we get 3,750. Now divide both sides by pi, I get r cubed equals 1193.66. I'm just kind of rounding. Take the cube root of that, okay, and depending on how your calculator is set up, the easiest way to do that is to raise to a power. You would raise this to the 1/3 power, or if you can do the cube root function. If you have questions, just let me know in class and I can help with that. But we find that the cube root of this is 10.6078. So we're going to then take this and plug it in. So 4 times pi times 10.6078 squared. Now again, once I took the cube root, although I just kind of wrote out 4 decimals, I'm leaving this in my calculator because I can get a more accurate answer. So then I square that, multiply it times 4 times pi, and I get 1414.047. It asks to the nearest square meter, so we have 1,414 square meters as our answer. Okay, another example just like that. This time we're looking for surface area to the nearest tenth. So again, volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. Surface area is 4 pi r squared. Now we know that the volume is 4,200. So if we plug that in, we want to solve for r. First, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/4 just to get rid of my fraction. So pi r cubed is 3,150. Divide both sides by pi. I get 1,002.67 approximately. Take the cube root of that. I get 10.0089. Alright, so then we're going to plug that in to find our surface area. You know, and again, as I went through this process, I didn't clear the calculator, I just kept using the answer that I was given. So now, this really long answer that I had, even though I just wrote down a part of it, I can square it, then multiply that times 4 times pi. I get 1258.878. We want to round to the nearest tenth, so we get 1,258.9. Our unit is square feet. Okay. So that is how to find the surface area and volume of spheres. It's very simple. We just have to keep our formulas in mind.